In a world ruled by outdated LTL with delays, damages, and mysterious pricing, welcome to The Solution, CB Radio from Warp, featuring Chris Reeves, VP of Pricing and Network, and Bill Bentz, SVP of LTL. With over 25 years of experience in logistics, Chris has played a crucial role in the expansion of Warp's nationwide network. Bill brings the same experience and the gusto to match it, ensuring that Warp's network delivers innovation and value for customers. Together, they don't just move freight, they're redefining what an optimized supply chain looks like.
Hey, Bill, good to see you again, man. Good to get on
Chris,
here and
good
talk
to see
about.
you. We survived another day in LTL.
Hey, man, it's funny. We've been, we continue to, talk about these things day to day. You laugh how, you got the Kelsey brothers doing their own podcast. You talk about how we ought to do one called CB or CB Radio or
CB,
something, or
CB Radio,
the Ben's Post or something like that, but here we are
or
back
CB
again.
broadcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your 20? Yes.
Hey, yeah. Rubber ducky. Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know if you saw, did you see where, and you and I both know, here we go again. It's GRI time again, right? Well, Old Dominion came out of the blocks first. They're dropping the 4.9 out there. I don't, I find it funny that this is always the common thing, not about Old Dominion. I just find it's common. It's always a 4.9 or 5.9. But, I saw it and I wanted to talk to you about, one, did you see it? I'm curious who's going to come out next as everybody's going to start rolling into it.
I did see it. And they were the first, rightfully so. They're in a great position to take increases with good service. But to your point, everybody will quickly follow. I would be shocked if everybody didn't announce it before the end of the year.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
100%. It has been that way as long as we've been in the business. It's you wait for that first one to come out and then everybody quickly follows.
Yeah, I think what Saya last year, they went out and I don't know, they may have, popped out a 7.9. I think they went a little higher than everybody. So we'll see how everybody falls in line on that.
Then begins the negotiation. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and with that, it's interesting because I think a lot of people don't understand that when these GRIs come out that, it's on the base tariff. Everybody gets it on the base tariff. And like you said, the negotiations come out. But I think a lot of people are, or a lot of more your heavy hitters more than anything, that a lot of people don't understand that these negotiations start coming in more so at the lane level, or, a lot of people may be passing on the discount and they're getting heavy into accessorial negotiations. Now, it's interesting because, of course, with us, we don't have to get into accessorial negotiations because we don't, let's remind everybody, it's pallet rate, and we include lift gate, appointment, residentials, limited access, and fuel in our rates. So
at no charge, if you let us know at time of booking. Nobody else is doing that.
We circle back to this simplified pricing model that we came out with Warp as the basis, as the DNA of the company.
Absolutely. What that does, they help us by allowing us to know what additional services or requirements are needed on that shipment. It allows us to plan, which in turn keeps costs down. And come that GRI time, I think our conversations are going to be a little bit easier than most. Let's just keep it real.
That's it. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, or people seem to forget. Accessorials are put in place because of bad players. Yep. This excuse of, we can't do this on our dock. We can't do that on our dock. We don't know, which we don't know means we refuse to make our customer service ask the customer the questions of what's required at the delivery or whatever the reasons are. And so with that, it kind of got me thinking a little bit about, hey, Bill, you and I, we know it's all, it's really easy for us because we've been doing this for a long time. It's real easy for us to sit here and talk about this, but I think there's a lot of things out there that people don't understand. And I think, one of the reasons for us getting on here talking is it's not just about war, but it's also about what's going on in the market.
Yep.
you know, there's a lot of conversation out there that with people you talk to and I talk to about Shiplify, who are telling people that, hey, this is a residential. You may want to click the residential button and tell the carriers that this is a residence, right? Or this is a limited access or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We got our good buddy out there, Lance Healy, that is putting scorecarding together or putting data together to be able to tell the carriers to be able to scorecard street addresses, not an individual. Well, let's back up. It gives an ability to scorecard down to the street address level.
That's right.
Which rolls up to a customer. Are you acting good or bad? Which is going to be a major, major, major point of GRIs and GRI negotiations. I mean, what are you hearing or what are you seeing, and what are your thoughts around that about these two new pieces of technology that people are rolling into their TMSs or rolling it, or the carriers are rolling into their software to be able to go out and say, look, GRIs are justifiable because of X, Y, and Z. This is your grade.
Because
What are your
fuel,
thoughts on that?
because of the cost of goods, yeah, because of equipment costs, maintenance, all the normal. I don't want to call it rhetoric, but the normal costs that everybody has been, I guess, trained to hear every year. But now it's we want to make it a two-way street. We're in to succeed with the customer, for them to grow and for us to grow with them as a byproduct of that. Their success leads to our success, additional shipments, additional revenue for Warp. I think a lot of people have just, I don't want to say accepted GRIs, but just, hey, it's a necessary evil. But it's not, it is, but it needs to be more collaborative. It's not, hey, here's your 4.9, you're taking it. Okay, you can tweak some lanes and it comes out to a 4.9, 7.9 here, 2.3 here, and it all equates to a 4.9. But as a result of that, a byproduct of that is carriers lose profitable lanes. You've seen that before. And I think by what Lance is doing, kind of flipped the script, started scoring shippers. Hey, are you easy to do business with for the carriers? And, because we've walked into many QBRs where those shippers or whoever are grading the carriers, and they need to be graded because it is a two-way street. It is a true partnership when you can do that. Does pricing know that customer is hard to do business with? No, they don't know. But if they can quickly look at a scorecard and be like, wow, you have you're not letting us know of accessorials that are needed. You're not, you don't have freight ready at time of pickup. Across the entire board, there's a cost associated with that. How many times are you picking up the phone instead of like using our portal to track a shipment? There's a cost associated with that. You can quantify that cost. I think by what Lance is doing, it's going to allow the carriers to take a deeper dive. Is that customer a true partner? Are they setting us up for success, which in turn is going to allow them to be successful in servicing their customer? That's what it comes down to.
So let me ask you this, because all the carriers understand operating ratios. They grade customers by operating ratio. I think adding this layer in there saying, why is this lane bad? I think adding, this street level grading that is going to be out there will help identify bad operating lanes or why stuff, because if you've got an F customer on the pickup and an F customer on the delivery, the OR is probably not going to be good.
What a great conversation starter for the carrier to walk into the shipper saying, hey, this is where we're struggling with you guys. Can you work to get better at that? A lot of people would be receptive to that, because say the general manager who's not out on the dock, he doesn't know if every shipment is always ready for the carriers, or if there's a 20, 25 minute wait time where that guy could have made 2 pickups prior to coming in there. A lot of people don't know that. I think shippers will be receptive to, are we easy to do business with? We ask that question at Warp all the time. What's the optic from the customers, from our partners level? Are we easy to do business with? Do we give good service at a great price? Do we give them the the documents needed to process an invoice? Are we responsive in our emails? I think customers want to, or shippers will want to know whether or not they're easy to do business with.
Do you think do you think internally that this is a conversation at a 3PL? I think it might be a little bit more at maybe, a 3PL, but let's say a shipper. Do you think these are conversations where they sit around the table and ask at the C level, or let's say if they're very large in the transportation department, do you think they look at each other and go, are we easy to do business with? And if you think they're having that conversation, or if you think a carrier comes and says, look, guys, you know, I think well, and let me add this into the question, Bill.
Sure.
If carriers start measuring phone calls and emails that each individual customer is submitting in, do you think that this is going to be a topic of conversation at the tables at the shipper and or at a 3PL, or a 3PL to a shipper that a carrier told them or a freight forwarder, of people coming to them and say, guys, look, you know what? Your grade is horrible. And it's because of your shippers.
Yeah.
Your shippers are not good shippers. Or do you think that they'll legitimately take back to the company and go sit down and go, look, you know what? You're blowing us up with emails. You're blowing us up with phone calls. You've got a TMS in place. You're getting tracking information, getting this, y'all have got to stop. I think that the measuring of the street addresses is going to be huge, but I think that the dynamics are already there to measure and scorecard those. What I don't think people have anything in place to measure the phone calls and the emails that are coming in. If they do have it in place, they're not using it as points of discussion as part of the QBR that they're going back to whoever it is of stating, again, like you said, shippers, 3PLs, freight forwarders, they have done their work on putting in scorecards for carriers, and they love to bring in this deck and start flipping through the deck and saying, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. However, carriers have put scorecards in, but that scorecard is an OR saying, this is you're not. Yeah. However, this next layer down of, this is why you're not, and really getting into the point of saying, okay, look, you know what, we're tired of hiring people for your account because you're abusing us, type of thing. Do you think that this thing is going to get down that granular, and these are going to be real topics of conversation to say, okay, look, you know what, you're costing me 10 bodies, love your freight, but you're costing me 10 bodies. You know what, you need to do something to cut my 10 bodies that are dedicated to your account down to 5.
Or I need to offset that cost. Yep.
Bill, look, the vertical that you ran at Yellow, you had bodies dedicated throughout. Yellow had body, and it's easy for us to talk about them because they're not here anymore. They had bodies dedicated to these massive Fortune 100 companies, these massive Fortune 500, because they had bodies dedicated to them. I mean, being able to take those bodies and say, hey, look, you know what? I got 10 bodies. I need you to get me to 5 bodies to support your account, or you're going to take a massive GRI. You're going to pay for these bodies. I mean, do you think these are real conversations, or do you think that everybody are just going to not have these conversations in the market?
Great question. I would say you and I've been in it just over 30 years. I would say over the last 25 years, those weren't conversations. It was exactly what you referenced. It was here's your OR, here's your poor operating lanes. Can we get more business in the good lanes to offset this? And it really wasn't peeling back the layers of the onion. It wasn't going deeper. I look at it as a great opportunity. Is it going to inject a little tension into those conversations and negotiations? Yeah, but that's what negotiations are. If you're not ready for that in sales, you probably shouldn't be in sales. Let's just call it like it is. You inject that tension, you allow them to see, are they being a true partner? And if they can check that box, and we've done all those, I think they can look the carriers in the face and say, we've done everything you wanted us to. but you're still having some poor operating lanes. What else can we do? I think those conversations are taking. I know I'm having those conversations because of what we've stood up at Warp, our portal, our real time tracking. The resources we make available to customers to prevent them from having to pick up a phone or send an email. They're readily available. We want them. For the most part, customers want, and there's still some old school people that want to pick up a phone. I'm one of those people. I'll admit it. I am who I am. But if given a resource where I can just log in and get what I need, I'm not going to pick up the phone. And it's gravitating or migrating those people away from that old school way of thinking and using the resources available to them.
Well, I mean, again, I mean, these transportation continues to go up. Our insurance costs going up. That the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah, everybody
Do the
can see
cost
that
of buying,
when they go shopping. Yeah,
do the cost of trucks, do the cost of trailers, do the cost of the equipment that's used to work in this business go up? The answer is yes. Um, and so, do I think that every year this is going to be coming through? Yeah, the answer is yes. However, I do think there's this aspect that, there are ways to cut down some of it. I mean, Bill, look, let's say this openly and honestly of anybody that's going to listen to this. A good significant amount of the business that the carriers haul that's going to drop this GRI out in public, there's a significant amount of business out there that's not going to be affected by this announcement.
yeah.
Okay.
By the CSP business, you mean?
That CSP business,
yeah.
The shipper specific business. I think the market needs to understand that if you're on their current, on their tariffs, that's what the plan is on the current tariffs and stuff like that. But if there's a CSP
100%.
special pricing, again, like you said, that's where the negotiations are going to come in play. So, so is it going to be a 4.9? Maybe. Is it going to be a 2? Maybe. Is it going to be a 9? Maybe.
Potentially, yes.
It might be more than that. It might be something, it might be carriers walking in saying, look, you're going to take a 15. If you don't take a 15, we're done. Yeah. Because of it's just not operating very well. That's right. So I think just because it's a good topic for us to talk about around the GRI, it's GRI time. Again, the first one came out. It could have been anybody. Everybody else is going to follow. It'll be fun to watch and see, where everybody falls in line with this stuff. But I do think that
it's going to be a hot seat for a lot of, traffic managers, logistic planners, because you just had those NMFC changes and then you parlay a GRI on top of that. They need to start explaining that line item of transportation to their CFO or to their controller.
Yeah. And I think everybody needs to also understand that negotiations have been going on all year long, that this is just a public announcement kind of thing, exactly. So these things have been going on all year long. There's been negotiations. There's always negotiations going on by sales with shippers to sales, 3PLs. I mean, shippers to carriers, 3PLs, carriers back. They're always going on back and forth all year long anyway. I just think that some of the tools that we are seeing coming out is going to make these things a lot more granular. Hey, look, in the grand scheme of things, I think they're going to make the carriers have a little bit more power to sit on these GRIs as well too.
100%. Because I think eventually they are going to take that street level costing and put it into their cost model. They're going to incorporate that into the GRI.
It's going, it's going to start on the front side. They're going to grade the street level. And I think even to the point that dynamic pricing can even be a more so stronger aspect in the market, to where instead of giving across the board discounts, that the dynamic pricing is, you give me the good shippers, you're going to get better pricing. You keep giving me these crap graded shippers, you know what? You're going to get worse pricing. So,
yep.
You want better pricing.
Accessorial is needed after the fact. I mean, there's a cost associated with that.
That's it. So that's right. So I think that there's going to be a lot of that's done into files. I think they're going to force addresses into files more of these data files that are coming. They want to see the actual street address. So it's going to be coming. Now, we talk about partnerships and we talk about this grading of customers and stuff like that. Bill, one of the things that we're finding that, a very hot topic is this middle mile optimization that we talk about in the market. Um, you know, I think a lot of partnership conversations that are happening out there that we are seeing I, are this. I don't know. People call it solution selling and stuff like that, but I think a lot of people are really looking at doing more on the dock, and they're taking control of what they're doing on the docks in terms of how to optimize freight.
Yes,
And they're using truckload carriers, or they're using multi-stop truckloads, or they're using people that are specializing in middle mile optimization
or
of
consolidations. Yes.
and it's getting down to the parcel level.
Yep.
Where they are actually consolidating these parcels, and they're taking freight off the parcel carriers, or it could be let's say off the really big parcel carriers,
Right.
and it's going to some of these smaller regional parcel carriers. But what they're doing is they're truckloading or they're LTLing into these guys and getting final mile parcel rates, regionally or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
I think this is interesting time around that because um, LTL and parcel never really mixed. Um, Truckload and parcel did a little bit, more so because the speed.
Yeah.
You're
The
able.
speed, or if it was, during peak season and, you had something that wasn't quite a truckload, but you didn't want to move it on LTL, but you did because you got a fair rate. You could justify it for the service. So yeah, I think that's a spot on assessment.
Yeah, I think I think we're seeing a lot more people being parcel smart. Um, FedEx and UPS are not the answer. Um, but I think a lot of people are trying to take control and figure out ways to do things maybe differently outside of
Differently and
maybe a FedEx.
easier, or more simply. Yeah.
I think it's I think it's more so that they just want a little bit more control.
Yeah.
Um, I think people have struggled to the visibility thing down to the parcel level, and now with the way we can track to the parcel level and see where you take all these parcels, combine them, put them on a truck, and we can track them all the way through, and then do a final mile or inject into a final mile, inject back into UPS and FedEx, maybe whatever that is.
Agree.
I think there's a lot of topics around this middle mile optimization, and then I think people are a lot more willing to do it on the LTL side now too, Bill. That they're consolidating these
Absolutely.
things on the LTL side. What are you seeing and what are you hearing around that? While when you're talking to people out there.
Yeah, you remember 10, 15 years ago, that was a buzzword, consolidation. It was in the LTL space. Did people do it? Yeah. Did they do it sparingly? Yeah. Across the entire industry, they did. But now you're starting to have people, what's a different way? Can I do it differently? Does it have to be this one trick pony that I have to inject it into LTL or truckload? People are starting to look for other solutions outside of the traditional means that we've existed in for the last 100 years. And it's worked.
Yeah.
I'm not bashing that operation or those networks. They've worked well. They worked really good, and then they went to okay, and they're just existing now within a static network. But now people are asking what are different ways to do it. And then when we bring them I'm going to plug Warp here, when we bring them a solution that they haven't thought of because of our dynamic network, I always say it, we can flex up, flex down based on the needs of our customers and based on the need of their customers. That's the great thing about having a dynamic network like Warp. Parcel, truckload, LTL, it doesn't matter. If it makes sense for the customer and we can be part of that, we'd love to be all of it from end to end. But if we can be part of it, we're good with that because that allows us to build a brand in the marketplace and show, hey, we're here to stay and we provide a really good service at a fair price point.
Yeah, I mean that when you get into middle mile optimization, um, that flexibility is a lot.
It is.
Um, we never know what the market's going to do, from a standpoint of, we can be the black swan event of COVID. Nobody ever could have imagined the volumes that they were going to get through their networks.
Nope.
Nobody ever imagined that the amount of volumes that were going to leave their networks as well too, being that, where we're sitting right now today. I mean, things are pretty stable, but if you look at the truckload market, it's really, really, really bad. So,
Right.
where the LTL market seems pretty stable, but the LTL market is really bad. We're just not seeing any growth or limited growth in the LTL. But, this flex up and then this flex down, this flexibility is a big thing.
It is. It really is.
Giving a customer the ability to say, hey, I'm gonna have, I need, 5 trucks every single day. And then when they have these moments that they have a sale, and they need 8, or they need, it's a holiday and they're having a holiday sale, they need to ramp up to 10 and then ramp back down to the normal 5 or scale to a 4. Maybe they lost some business or the product's not moving like it would, seasonal, whatever it is. I think it's the flexibility of them being able to come to us and say, look, this is what we see that we're going to need, and us being able to quickly provide that and drop it in and then scale it back down. And I'll keep it
That's
all
right.
within a budget is a huge thing, to where I
That's right.
think people have struggled with consistently through the years is, who
No
do I
doubt.
go to? Everybody wants the dedicated situation put in place. They don't want to scale down. They don't want to scale up. But I also think the aspect of people are scared to death to talk about scaling down because they don't want to lose the revenue. Nobody wants to, but they're also scared to death to talk about scaling up, because that short period of time of scale up costs extra money, and people
That's
stay
right.
away from the scale up, type of things, because they don't want to stress out operations,
That's
um,
right.
and have that conversation with a terminal manager or a VP of ops or whatever. Look, we need to scale this thing up,
Yeah.
but we're going to
And
have to
they got to
scale it
go
back
out and
down.
rent equipment or shift fleet or equipment to a new location. That's there again. There's a cost associated with that.
That's right. That's right. Or end up leaving equipment in an area that they don't want to leave it and stuff like that.
That's
So,
right.
I really think it's interesting though, Bill, because I think the middle mile optimization, we talked about technology with the new tools that have come in place. Of course, we built our own optimizer from scratch from the start. We knew we needed it. It was something that, our CTO and our founder, Daniel and Zip, they put those things in early on, for us to be able to take advantage of, and just, did a great job of building these things out. But, there are, I think it's interesting when we're talking to people, we hear about the TMSs that have these optimizers built into them, but we also see these optimizers on outside the market, and we hear the market talking to these optimizers about them trying to take some sort of control to optimize stuff,
Yep.
inside. Bill, I think the first, you'll love this. The first real optimization was, hey, ship more products. So because if you deficit weight it, you end up getting, the
Yes.
same
Yes.
LTL rate anyway, right?
Yes. Was that what was that called? The bump
The
clause
bump
or
rule.
whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was the bump rule. Yeah. Geez,
Yeah. So,
I hadn't heard that term before.
we
Yeah.
never called it optimizing, but the bump rule that, and using deficit weight to be able to sell more product at the same cost of transportation.
100%.
It's like, look, just add more
Yeah.
onto it. It's going to cost you the same thing, right?
That's it.
And
That's exactly
and
right.
and,
Or it may
and
cost you a
that
little
whole
less.
thing
Yeah.
just blew
Exactly.
people's mind, and people still don't use it. But, I think these tools that are being put in to optimize, to create middle mile optimization, to scorecard and to grade, is really something that's interesting to see. It's going to arm both the shipper. It's going to also, I think it's going to arm the carrier a lot more, because they're a little behind the shipper or the 3PL in terms of the information. But it's really going to, arm both sides when we talk about GRIs and stuff like that.
That's right. That's right. I would agree with that.
So, all right, man. Good talk to you.
I
We'll
love it.
we'll find some other topics to banter about. Okay.
CB broadcast or podcast number 2 is in the books.
All
I love it.
right. Talk to you later, man. Bye.
Thanks, Chris.